everybody, it's the Hey Poopy podcast. What that booty do from poop to pleasure to health. Hosted by me, Ellen.
And me, Dave. Two curious people removing the stigma from your stinker. And why are we doing this? Because we love laughing, learning all about butts and helping them be the best they can be. And on this week's episode, we had Sarah Nahar, who wrote this amazing paper on defecatory justice. Or injustice, depending on how you read it, but it's a fantastic read. She was brought to us by Sean from the Poop Project. She combines so many things: religion, environmental justice, food justice. The whole thing is just like wrapped up into like basically a big circular poop train, if you will.
A big poop package.
Yeah, pretty much.
And she also says every time you flush that toilet, do you really know where it's going? Like, why are we just flushing it down with some fresh, drinkable, clean water that we're running out of when the stuff that we're flushing down could be literally turned into money because our poop and pee can grow crops and do so much more, which Sarah goes into talking about, like in this clip.
The reason that I continue at it, despite the ick factor, is because there is a sanitation crisis. Almost 40% of the world's population, almost 1 in 3, don't have sanitation that is working to support their life. Yeah. It's creating malnutrition, diarrhea, and things of that nature. And so the solution, though, is not to kind of export the freshwater flush English toilet style. And it's also not to shame people into having a certain type of toilet, but it's to look at the dynamics of what it means to take a good shit in that place, and to think very carefully about community building around it.
You can see how all things are linked together and how we can actually change things in this country. And again, this isn't a one-type solution for every community. There's tons of options. So this episode is chock full of that. It's very informative. You'll find out talking about poop isn't a big deal. And it actually can help us.
Even if it just opens up your mind to going, where does my poop go? Is such an important idea that Sarah brought to us. Yes. So let's go right into this episode. But before we do that, have you checked out HeyPoopyPodcast.com, where you have a link to our Patreon where you can get ad-free episodes? Do it!
Without further ado, on to the shit show.
Have you ever let one rip and there was a little extra in your pants? Oh no.
And you only had a sock to help you clean up your mess?
Well, introducing the Original Shark Kit, an all-in-one poopy pants saving first aid kit for the shits.
This kit comes with a fresh pair of underwear, stain remover, sanitizing and butt wipes, anti-diarrhea tablets, a bag for disposal, plus an extra sock.
Don't be caught behind the dumpster cleaning up your mess without the Original Shark Kit.
And for all those Hey Poopy podcast listeners, you get 10% off this butt-saving pack with promo code HeyPoopy.
Go to originalsharkkit.com. Not just a gag gift, but a pants-saving must-have.
That's originalsharkkit.com. Stay away from a stinky situation.
Hey Poopy, how you doing? Hey Poopy, how you doing?
I'm just, trying to find a place with like-minded people to talk about like-minded things about me, about poop and stuff.
Hey Poopy, how you doing? Hey Poopy, how you doing?
Oh man, what's this right here? Is this a podcast about poop?
Hey everybody, welcome back on Dump Day.
Hey everybody, it's the Hey Poopy podcast with your hosts,
Dave.
And me, Ellen. And this is episode 164, but it'll always be number 2 to us, our favorite number. And we have a very special guest, somebody we found out about through one of our past guests, Sean Schaffner. Yes. We have Sarah Nahar. Oh my God. Practice makes perfect.
We were practicing before, so you nailed it. That was awesome.
Woo!
Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. And we really want to dive into the subject that you wrote about called defecatory injustice or justice. Mm-hmm. And you wrote a paper on it and Sean talked about it. But before we dive into such an important topic, we love to know, how have you been pooping?
Wow, I gave birth almost 3 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. My anus will never be the same. But, you know, as goes the anus, as goes your life. It has loosened up and opened up, and life is transformed. I am grateful that at the hospital, they actually gave us some laxatives afterwards. And I was like, I don't think I'll need these. They're like, trust me, you don't want to push anymore for a couple days. And so this is the first time ever in my life I took laxatives, and it did help to smooth movement. And once I got back home, I mean, there's like a lot of ice packs involved and like witch hazel pads, which allow for like healing as all that amazing tissue kind of knits itself back together. And like the kind of like hemorrhoids that appeared, which had never appeared before for me, you know, like those are like just like the pressure is coming off and your body is readjusting to not having a human on the inside. Just got back at home, just pulled out my squatty potty, and it just, you know, been pooping regular ever since. So I'm grateful for what I learned. A lot of people are afraid to poop during birth, but I was like, yeah, bring it on. Let's do it. How much poop can I make as well as a baby head? So it was cool.
Yeah, but also, like, can you control it? Like, just give in, you know?
Yes,
you're creating life. Like poop should be the last thing that you should be even thinking about or worrying about.
Hey,
you know?
Yeah. I mean, poop, as I'll talk about when we get into defecatory justice, that poop is life. It's soil. We're making some more soil if we can move it out of our water system and back into the earth safely.
Yes, I agree with you there.
So basically your butthole's on autopilot and for a little bit still like on auto, like on, you know, you're in the car, you put it on a little button, the old button used to switch on to auto.
I wish my butthole was on autopilot. Sounds great.
Well, what about y'all? How you been pooping?
Dave?
I went to the bathroom twice today. Nothing special. I go 2 to 3 times a day. So I went early this morning and then late afternoon. Or not late, this is late afternoon technically still, but like around like 2. Nothing, you know, on the Bristol stool chart, like a 4.5, 5-ish. So nothing spectacular, just mom and pop meat and potatoes.
I have not pooped today, and I'm very annoyed by it. I do not know what's going on, except for my stress levels are back at an all peak high, thanks to taking care of stuff with my father, as I've talked about on past episodes. But for Sarah, since you may not have heard, my father's in a care facility. I'm moving him to a different one. Stress and constipation go hand in hand inside my body. However, about a week and a half ago, I did a drunk purchase where I have been kind of weirdly obsessed with Googling pictures of like exotic fruits that you can't find in the grocery store here, or if you can, they're terribly, terribly expensive. So my drunk purchase was this website that like sends you a box of exotic fruits. And I was like, yeah, I'll do this. I would say almost all the fruits were incredibly delicious and amazing, but I ate some on, I want to say Friday or Saturday. And I think it was the golden berries. I had such an explosive shit the next day. I feel like this fruit fiber that was new to my GI tract, my gut, like started a whole new fire. And I was like, wait, have I found the answer to my constipation? But I've been eating golden berries. Like they gave me a little box of it and I've been eating like 4 or 5 every day. It was only like the first initial but there was a point where I was doing errands and my stomach was grumbling to a place where I was like, I might shit my pants. This might happen to me today, because it was like painful, like moving through. And I was like, uh-oh, exotic fruit in my tummy. What did I do? Ended up not shitting my pants, just had some like crazy cramps. But yeah, I never assumed that fruits I've never eaten before would affect me like that, because I'm pretty adventurous when it comes to fruits and vegetables. But yeah.
Okay.
I love that fiber.
Well, maybe it'll help work yourself out.
Yeah. Wet wipes say they're flushable, but they are a lie.
Over $1 billion annually is spent on fixing the wet wipe epidemic.
Don't wreck your pipes and sewers with wipes that don't actually flush.
Ditch those baby wipes for a grown-up bidet in a bottle with Cleanse.
The cleansing foam that transforms any TP into a sewer-saving flushable wipe that goes anywhere with you.
99% plant-based, free of toxins, soothing on the skin. It's a foam that makes 150 wipes in one small bottle.
Visit cleanse.com. That's QLEANSE.com and get 15% off with promo code HeyPoopy.
That's Cleanse with a Q. Visit cleanse.com. And remember, wipe clean and rethink your hygiene.
So, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself besides your poo?
I mean, what more is there to know? But sure, yeah, I will. But first, a quick comment on one thing that I learned, and perhaps you guys have discussed this on the podcast already, but often people put their parents or other elders into care facilities after they can no longer control their bowels. Like that's one of the main impetus for, like, people can usually deal with like one, maybe quote what they call accident a day, but once it gets to two, I'm not sure who did this dissertation. I'm a PhD student right now, so when I hear about something interesting, my job is to stay focused on my dissertation and say, that's really interesting, and that's someone else's dissertation. But I found that really intriguing in terms of, just of course the life cycle of like bowel control that is not really known that much to newborns and is lost sometimes in elderhood.
Yeah, we had True Labs that has the smart toilet. We had them on the show maybe about last summer and talked about elder care and like how some people, so my dad has dementia and he doesn't have incontinence, which is crazy, but he has dementia. And so sometimes with dementia, they can't talk about, are they constipated? Do they have diarrhea? Because they don't even remember like what happened 30 minutes earlier, let alone what's happening. And so that smart toilet actually would tell the caregiver what's happening in patterns in their bathroom habits, which was really freaking cool. And I hope that this smart toilet gets into more hands. And then we also had Exonics on last year, and they're the pacemaker for incontinence. So yes, we've had some tech people on that we've talked about all this and how the pacemaker could help with elder care and dealing with that incontinence.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing with me about your past episodes, because it was through Sean Schaffner and others that I learned about your podcast. And so it's just a great opportunity to be a guest today, and that connects us with the world of what you all have been doing. And happy to connect you all with this research thread that I'm following, which is, what are the worldviews that assist someone in saying yes to ecological sanitation, or that is not using a freshwater flush toilet, but other ways to safely reintegrate that which comes out of our bodies, urine and feces, into healthy rhythms of life. So that is what I focus on. And that is here at Syracuse University via the Department of Religion, and at the State University of New York's College of Environmental Science and Forestry in the Department of Environmental Studies. So we're building a joint PhD in religion and environment. In this case, religion means worldviews, practices, rituals, things people do together individually or communally as they experience and make meaning of what is happening in their lives. And then environmental studies is asking those questions about why are our systems set up like they are environmentally? What does culture have to do with it? And what do our environmental systems say about how we perceive ourselves vis-a-vis other of our natural relatives? So that is what I work on. So we're here in upstate New York for probably 7 to 10 years.
Oh, wow.
That's, we're building a field, one that in many ways represents interdisciplinarity of where a lot of social science work is going and humanities work is going. And people are welcome to look into it. Syracuse sits on traditional Onondaga territory, and they're the central fire of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which is the original confederacy on this landmass, not the southern one. And it's like a very powerful group of people who have been practicing participatory democracy for thousands of years and helped kind of mentor some of them, like Benjamin Franklin and all those folks. So anyway, it's a real honor to be in this space and learn from this place and space. And we do our work close to the banks of Onondaga Lake, which is a sacred lake to the Haudenosaunee people, but also up until just a number of years ago held the infamous label of being the most polluted lake in the United States as a result of chemical dumping and wastewater.
Yeah. My parents live in Rochester, so Genesee River and the lake up there is was pretty bad. Like Kodak would just dump like chemicals just directly into the like you throw. So yeah, I'm aware of like that whole upstate. It's ridiculous.
I want to know, like, when these places made all these chemicals and they thought that that was a good idea, like how it was like not looking into the future whatsoever. Like, it just doesn't. Yeah, so many levels of wrong.
Well, that's how it comes to the kind of this religious kind of worldview. Whether or not it's a specific religion, maybe they did think about the future, but their worldview is that the natural world is to be used and is at our disposal and can be disposed of without consequence, or that it's not wrong to do so. And so with that worldview in mind, I mean, you're right. The question is, why did they think it was a limitless resource in terms of the future? Or maybe they knew it wasn't limitless, but they thought, hey, this is not my responsibility. Exactly. Yes. And the counterpoint to that is right. So that it's like that kind of worldview, which the reason I like kind of am pulling that thread around the future is because like now we know better. And many still do it. So what is that motor behind it? And that money, that profit, and that sense of disconnection. And it develops in a flush and forget society. So in many ways, I know, Dave, you're like, oh, I went to the bathroom twice, nothing special. But wow, the modern toilet is like mind-bogglingly special in a certain way. Like it's this kind of magic machine, which somehow whisks so-called away what you left there.
Oh yeah. Oh, and I'm aware. I just meant like my brand of.
Yeah, so it's only 4
I left behind.
Your old Dave. Old Daves that went down the tubes. Exactly. But I still think that's special. But what I tell people, is like, because it was once they realized how their most mundane of everyday actions is wreaking havoc downstream on the fish and people and everything like that. I invite them to make it a special moment in the sense that, if they do, when they do flush, just to say thank you and to recognize that there is a lot happening. Both thank you to your body that it made, that it was able to release in peace, and that aspect of whatever's happening with the toilet. And someday I hope, and we'll have to organize at a municipal level. It's not just like an individual solutionary thing, but like we'll organize to have whole systems that allow us to like poop in dignified and peaceful and safe ways that don't poison downstream.
Yes.
Yeah, completely.
Especially we've had Chelsea Wald from Pipe Dreams on the show, and how so many of the pharmaceuticals we take don't break down inside of our bodies. And so that becomes part of the waste, microplastics and everything else that just fucks up. Like it's not just, if it was just food we were eating, it'd be one thing, but it's just all the other compounded, and then all the other crap that we thought was okay to flush in the toilet that's not okay. Like chemicals, cleaning chemicals, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
And so what brought you into wanting to tackle this subject?
So after I finished working with a international nonviolent direct action group that comes alongside communities around the world where U.S. tax dollars are being used to wage war, buy weapons, and things of that nature. It's called Community Peacemaker Teams. And we worked in Northern Iraq and Palestine and Colombia, alongside First Nations folks in Canada, a number of other places. I was leading that organization as executive director, and I was working on like dealing with our crap, like metaphorically. Like conflict is an expression of what the body cannot process, our collective societal body. We can't process what's not moving smoothly. And so working on issues of conflict was very meaningful and also pretty exhausting. And
I bet.
Anyway, it was a good run. And I finished up doing that as the organization was able to make a significant shift towards the great work that's still doing now. And I ran away with the circus.
Poop circus?
Well, this circus is called the Carnaval de Resistance. Carnival.
Oh, so real circus.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about like a metaphor.
Yeah, you mentioned it in the paper. I was interested in that.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah. So in the Carnaval de Resistance, we would set up a tent, big top tent in various communities where we were invited. We're doing ecological justice work in one way, shape, or form. And we were looking at how the elements of earth, air, water, and fire were speaking through the biblical text to this particular moment. And so, for example, we told the story of Noah's Ark, which is the story of this great flood. And there's a bunch of animals and flora and fauna and all this on this ark. And then a raven is sent out, it doesn't come back, and a dove is sent out and kind of finds an olive branch and comes back. And then the people know, oh my goodness, this massive flood of 40 days and 40 nights is over. So often we tell that story, particularly as it's shared with young people, and you tell it from the human's perspective of what it was like to be on that ark, what it was like to have a vision of climate catastrophe and to prepare for it, and what we should do then as humans and things of that nature. But we told this story on air night from the perspective of the raven and the dove, two birds who were circling around the humans during this time, the last time the world was destroyed. So now they're back again. So they come back and they appear, and one of our friends plays this raven, and I was kind of like crotchety voice from Camden, New Jersey, where all the crap from Philadelphia washes up, and he's talkative, and he is engaging with the audience around the pursuit of verticality and power and disposability, and dove, which is kind of a historic, they're both mythical birds that show up in a lot of different people's traditions, and in the biblical text doves often represented holiness and hope and stuff. And so dove is interacting, but the state of hope is one in which even though raven is very talkative, dove is mute. She doesn't say anything, and at one point she's in a cage. Another point, she's wounded, but dove is this bird that kind of brings to us the message of, even though things are very difficult and very painful, and there may be not a reason to go on, there's an invitation nevertheless to continue. And so we told this story of what's happening to the air in this case, and we told also stories about the earth. And so the Jeremiah, Zechariah, and Isaiah, and these prophets from the biblical text, as well as the cedars of Lebanon and the European green man, were all these epic characters that interact with the biblical text. That was Earth Night, and Water Night was John the Baptist and Miriam, who's in that story of Exodus. And Fire Night, it's the fire and the bones of the prophets, and the woman clothed with the sun from Revelation. So it was a very biblical touring group that was doing really powerful elemental work. And we brought these characters to life. There's talking trees in the Bible. So next time we talk to a biblical literalist, remind them there's talking trees, and the Bible is an enchanted book. It's not a disenchanted one. It's one in which is the earth is alive and speaking to you. And it's pay attention.
Yeah.
And so we brought this circus to right outside churches, and the people at the church would interact with this, because we were kind of trying to tell them, hey, the church has become a circus, but the circus can help us understand ways of doing church and being church together. And one of those, we wanted to live our values of rewilding and connecting with land and air and fire and water again. And so we had a fossil fuel free kitchen as well, and we lived in tents during the whole month-long show, and we had a composting toilet. So this was the first time that I really met a composting toilet at length. And the first time I used a composting toilet, I was like, oh my gosh, it's disgusting. Oh my, I was just vomiting, and I just thought, I'm gonna die. But hey, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah.
It could be the worst porta potty on earth. It could be a spot under a tree. When you gotta go, you gotta go. So this is the advantage in our work because hey, look, people, there's demand. There's demand for this. So anyway, so I used it and I didn't die.
We can see you. We know you didn't.
You made it.
and then I covered it with the little sawdust, the wood chips. And then at the end of the month, we had a chance to cart our buckets of shit over to this farm called the New Community Project in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is and we got to see the flowers and the orchards where they were using the Humanure fertilizer. And at that moment, I said, I have a conversion experience. I was like, oh my goodness, I never want to crap in fresh water again. This is where it's at. And so through that process, being in a process that was working with these deeply religious texts and looking at the elements of the environmental justice movement and living in that way, I just opened my heart and my mind to the question of what would it take to really achieve my life dream of not shitting in fresh water? What would it take? And the reason I ended up doing a PhD with it is because looking at what it would take starts to actually still look at our society as a whole and how it's structured to separate us from the impacts of our actions in so many ways, shapes, and forms. But the communities who are on the front lines of dealing with environmental injustice, and in this case, defecatory justice, are those to where the shit gets shipped. And the communities downstream, that there is no away. Where is away land? It doesn't exist. There's no place called away. Away is somewhere. Someone's lived there. And so it's a pursuit of figuring out how we tackle this question of dealing with our crap literally, because I was doing it before metaphorically, and I'm using all those skills to help me also think about how do we deal with it literally, because it's such a taboo to talk about and experience. I was a grown adult before I experienced a non-flush toilet, with the exception of some places that I had traveled around the world, which do not use the same freshwater flush system. It was the first time here in the US that I had a chance to do that. And so I wondered about what possibilities there may be. And it's not, again, not individual solutions or just people putting composting toilets in their house, though that is great. And also some places illegal with the zoning laws and everything like that to try the closed loop system. But it's going to take organizing. And so it's a part of the work I do as part of climate change, climate justice work, and seeking for us to be able to really deal with the crap, be able to see it, be able to have that experience that I did of I cannot do this, to I want to be able to do this well.
You had that one awesome line in your paper, and I'm trying to find it right now. Do you was it the
Oh yeah, would you like me to say it?
Yes, please, because I can't. I mean, I'm frantically scrolling through, but yes.
It's totally fine. I think that when we hear growing up, no matter what religion we're from, we often hear, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's a basic, call it golden rule. And so I learned from Indigenous folks in Six Nations space, which is the similar Haudenosaunee Confederacy just north of the arbitrary US-Canada border. They're yeah, that's the golden rule. But, we also say, do unto those downstream as you'd have those upstream do to you. And so it's our golden rule transposed onto our water systems. Because you know what? All of us are downstream. Basically, all of us are downstream of somebody.
Yeah, but I love that line, though. It was such a great, summation of how we kind of look at toilets and everything, where it goes.
Yeah, and so who are we upstream of? How can we think about what we're doing, what we're putting in? And it's also in many ways the work that I do, defecatory justice, is the back end of food justice. There's a lot of work happening. It's incredible, the field of food justice, challenging food apartheid, working on Black and Indigenous and other folks' access to land and how to plant with heirloom seeds, how to care and craft all that space. And the conversation sometimes ends with the moment that we get to put it in our mouth. The food, and, we talk about culture and how the food is served and who we're eating with and when. what about when we chew it and swallow it and digest it? Then actually we become producers in the food system. And I don't think food justice is complete without an analysis about where does our poop and pee go, those additional nutrients, once we have used what we can. And, almost every other animal gives back to the watershed that feeds it. And we kind of deplete the watershed by eating from it and then pooping and then carting those nutrients elsewhere. So yeah, doing unto others downstream as we'd have those upstream do to us.
I like that a lot.
Great. That's fantastic.
It really makes you think of the whole system much more universal. So I need to ask, are you currently pooping in a composting toilet?
Okay, so we are within the city limits of Syracuse, and in Syracuse, it's not, as in most cities, it's not really legal to be able to do that. But I hope that the listeners to Hey Poopy won't turn me in to say that we do have a composting toilet experiment in our basement, and we handle it with great care. We do produce our own Humanure, and
That's awesome.
We have some farmers we're in contact with who are outside city limits.
That's amazing. I mean, plus the fact that if taking a shit somewhere and then using that material to actually produce something is kind of amazing.
Isn't that cool?
That's so cool. I mean, it's the fact you can do that is pretty nuts. I mean,
yeah, I wrote it down. There's a guy who wrote a book on calling it human manure, and I tried to get him for the show, but he never wrote us back. But I would love to dive deeper into people who practice that. So do you have a garden?
Yeah. So Joe Jenkins wrote a bunch of Humanure handbooks.
That's his name. Yes.
Yeah, Humanure Hammer. Yeah, he lives in near Erie, Pennsylvania. Just try emailing him again. He might write back. He at least he wrote back to me, but maybe it's because I was a researcher. But I'll try to I can ping him for you, because he's just done a lot of work on the technical side. How would you do this for real? So that the earth is amazing, and the folks that we also are in contact with, Sean might have mentioned them. They're from the Rich Earth Institute. They do a lot with urine-based fertilizer, and they've actually already are doing a lot of scientific experiments as to how much pharmaceuticals do stay in urine residue. And it's a little bit different with feces, but still, that conversation is happening, and the earth is incredible with how much it breaks down, and it breaks down all the things and the caffeine and whatever else is in our urine or poop. And so Rich Earth Institute is in Vermont. And so we also do collect our urine. And so that's also fun, retraining ourselves, particularly femme folks, to poop and pee at different times. And when they have
which is almost near impossible for me.
So it just takes a little bit of training, but it's pretty fun. Or you can use urinal maybe only when you have to go pee. And then you take it to their urine depot, and then it's in these 5-gallon kind of cubes. And then their pump just pumps it out, and then they are able to process it and use it on hay fields. But yeah, we can give you Julia's name and other people. I know it's not poop, but it's poop adjacent. It's pee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sean mentioned that in his episode too. He went up there.
Yeah, so they're a lot of fun. So work with them, and then there's other people who are doing Humanure. I know some folks in Canada. Yeah, and I think that one group that I study that I'm really grateful for is Recode Portland. And Recode folks worked in Oregon to get some of the zoning laws changed, because that's a big part of it, because the zoning laws will determine whether or not you can do an experiment in these closed loop systems. And to be able to do these experiments well and scientifically and with accountability will make a huge difference, because we're going to get data that shows us how valuable our shit is. And I think in 20 years, we'll all be kind of frustrated that we were just pooping and giving it away for free. We're flushing money down the toilet.
We've done news stories on in the Netherlands, and they've gotten it down to the point where they can the sludge at the bottom of these treatment plants are now being used to create phosphates to make bricks to make for the roadways. And the scientific part's amazing, but the idea of you're literally pooping somewhere, and then all that stuff, your urine, feces, is all getting turned into something else that's going towards the good of the community, as opposed to just away. I just say so.
As opposed to making something toxic.
Completely, yeah. If they can do it, we can all get on board with this thing. It's just so fascinating. Just if you look at it even from a technological standpoint, it's incredible that they've accomplished that.
I know. I feel like a lot of it is just we have to put a lot of investment up front to make it pay us back in the long run, which you even wrote in your paper, how every dollar brings back 7. So it's like, come on, let's spend the money. It sucks to spend it up front, but it pays it back in the long run.
Yeah,
so,
maybe we can get some people to do some drunk purchases like you did.
Right.
Instead, they're just going to go for composting toilets or, a different way to shit, But in any case, there are some companies also, mostly I had a chance to study them in Kenya last January. And one's called Sanitation, another's called Sanergy. They're actually figuring out how to do this with a profit to some extent because poop lends itself great to the circular economy. They're providing a public service up front through their nonprofits by creating sanitation infrastructure where there isn't any. So the places where there isn't any will be in what sometimes are called secondary cities, or these cities around the world, but mostly in the global south, but everywhere really, that are growing at an immensely fast rate. They're growing at such a fast rate because of land grabs and kind of corporate maneuvering and globalization. And as people are pushed off land, they go to the city to find work, but there's no place to poop and pee in peace and safety. Anyway, so as the infrastructure slowly expands from the governmental level, Sanergy and to some extent Sanitation is able to work with the municipalities to provide these services. Then with the capture of the urine and feces, particularly I'll just focus on the poop now, they can dehydrate it. And in terms of Sanivation's work in Naivasha, Kenya, they can combine it with any type of wood dust and chips. And it can be up to 80% poop and 20% wood, or 80% wood, 20% poop, or anything in between. And they put it through a huge furnace, which both sterilizes everything and burns that what becomes a charcoal substitute together. And that the briquette that comes out burns longer and is more dense, and therefore burns more evenly than charcoal. And so they're able to reduce deforestation on one hand and produce a briquette from poop on the other hand, and assist in reducing the overload on a sewerage treatment plant. And then Sanergy, on the other hand, in addition, they run theirs first through a bunch of black soldier fly larvae. And these black soldier fly larvae they're like all the types of larvae and worms and stuff they eat, and they poop out really high level frass that is able to function as a fertilizer and soil. And then right before the little worm larvae turn into buzzing flies, they get zapped and they are dehydrated and given to chickens as animal feed protein. So that is also increasing the chicken's nutrition. So that's a second product. And then whatever comes out of the black soldier fly frass and can be combined with all vegetables and fruit compost, and is thermophilically heated there, and then provides yet another product for farmers to use. So circular economy is proving that not only can you get a return on investment fairly soon, but it's going to be worth it. Now, a lot of those experiments, again, they're not really allowing them to take place in the U.S. And so folks are going to places where people already realize that fresh water is a scarce resource and we need to be incredibly careful with it. And we probably shouldn't shit in it.
Yes.
Yeah, completely.
And we're literally flushing it down the toilet. Yes. I mean, I try to yellow and mellow, but you can only do so much. And I feel like this is also getting back to our roots as we are humans, cavemen. We didn't flush our toilets back in the day. We pooped outside and buried it and put it in the earth. And it was only, and you and Sean and so many people who have been on this show, or just even me and Dave have seen this with people ew, you have a poop podcast? Poop has only been something that's so gross when we started making these bathrooms that were solitary. And the solitary bathrooms were also the freshwater flush ones. And when we were pooping more as a community, it wasn't as much of a taboo or a stigma. And so even just to talk about composting toilets in that way. I mean, I'm not saying that Dave, you and I should all compost toilet shit together, but talking about it as a community, and how it then also is this part of the social circle of life and circle of life of creating food is just an amazing thing that we should all be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that I continue at it, despite the ick factor is because there is a sanitation crisis. Like almost 40% of the world's population, almost like 1 in 3, don't have sanitation that is working to support their life. It's creating malnutrition, diarrhea, and things of that nature. And so the solution, though, is not to kind of export the freshwater flush English toilet style. And it's also not to shame people into having a certain type of toilet, but it's to like look at the dynamics of what it means to take a good shit in that place and to think very carefully about community building around it. I think an example I'd give of this is like in some places in India where like so-called open defecation is a huge problem. Before the British came, like there was a multi-layered, multi-species jungle that people could walk to from their homes and take a poop and come back. And all of those diverse organisms working together in that jungle would be able to digest and take in that discarded resource from the humans. And so it wasn't a problem. It was a distance from the community. It was like a fresh experience, and while you walk back. But if that jungle is cut down and monocropped pine trees or like monocrop eucalyptus are planted, if you do the same thing, that same area can't reabsorb the shit in the same way. And then therefore, because poop carries pathogens, that becomes a problem. So partially the solution to open defecation is not only just like giving people a certain type of toilet aspects, it's decolonization. It's creating permaculture spaces again, where there's multi-species involved that can help to receive the gift that comes from our asses.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that.
And that comes from, conversation with people who are thinking carefully about what they've learned. And everywhere from in Ladakh in Northeast India, there's a school that focuses on that because they've been doing composting toilets for a long time. And other people too who are reflecting critically on the politics of shit and who gets treated like shit, whose life matters in terms of when we're paying attention to disposability or not, and like where's our shit going, and how is it being reintegrated or not. So I stick with it because I think it tells us a lot about our society, and it's revolution, but revolution from the bottom up.
Yeah, like you're saying, like just like the whole idea of like culture and like open defecation, specifically in India. We talked to people that were mentioning like, yeah, you can just go in and like, here's a toilet, use it. It doesn't really work that way. There's so many like levels to it, as opposed to just being like, you should be using this and then a good day. And I find that really fascinating. People just I get people want to help, but it's also like, there's all this systemic stuff that you have to deal with first. How do we like best affect what's going on in this culture, as opposed to like, I see it this way, so you should do it the same way. That's what I was basically trying to say.
I think that to build on that and to round it back to sanitation, in many, many ways, there was a way in which if you had a toilet back in the day, you were seen as closer to quote unquote civilized. And if you
say that again, I'm sorry.
If you had a toilet back in the day, when the colonists were around, then you were seen as closer to them and more civilized, and more savage if you didn't. And so people connoted having a certain type of instrument to handle your crap as, a ticket to greater education, to higher class, to all this stuff. And so it's wrapped up with that. So when you tell people, for example, when you tell African Americans in the US, like, hey, this toilet situation, it's not really doing great for us. Many of them will say, we don't want to go back to outhouses. We want to go back to how things were. Or we had to go outside at second class, and so we'll have to really go very deep into ways of thinking about our connections with land and our chance to treat water well, because if you take care of the water, it'll take care of you. And instead of outhouses, I'm really interested in designing one of the most beautiful, the most beautiful thrones. Let's say we'll call them thrones for real, just for so people to know that we're making some holy shit. We're making some royal stuff. And in fact, the people who ran the Carnival Day Resistance now have a space called Dreaming Stone, where they have a couple composting toilets and some really like big ones that are able to like function for their retreat center. And it's very pleasant shit because you just have like the fan is going at the bottom. So you have like this nice little air. And then you're also creating soil for Dreaming Stone Arts and Ecology Center in Rutherford, North Carolina. So like they're just doing really cool things that have helped them live in integrity, because often, a lot of places that do work on environmental sustainability, they're paying attention to everything except the toilet. And I just want to make it more popular to be able to be like, what does pooping well look like here? Because we will have decentralized solutions where it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
It's almost rebranding it to, make it the next level of excitement, I mean,
great idea.
I don't know if you saw the piece. I always, this piece was so pivotal to me, but there was a piece in 60 Minutes about the straight pipes in Alabama, and it's mostly affecting African American, Black people, and you don't even think that this kind of public defecation, I know it's not very public, but it's a pipe that just leaves their home and goes straight into their backyard, and so they don't have a septic tank or a sewer system, and you don't think of that even
soil.
Yeah, it doesn't. You don't even think about that happening in this country. You're like, oh, this is in India. This is in other countries. And so I thought that was such an important piece for 60 Minutes, because it's like, yes, this is happening in literally our backyards. We need to pay attention to it. And a lot of the people there, they just want normal, quote unquote, flush toilets to feel like part of society, where you're even suggesting, what if they got a sexy outhouse with a composting toilet? They would be completely part of society, an environmental part of society, and could make things from it like food. So yeah, it's just rebranding, I think.
Yeah, and I definitely want to commend Catherine Coleman Flower's work there in paying attention to waste. That's the America's Dirty Secret, the book that she wrote, and also the Poor People's Campaign, both the one in 1967-68 and the one that's happening now, kicking off in 07, 08, and continuing on through this decade as well to, and I guess 2017 and 2018, really kicking off again 50 years later. And doing incredible work and starting in that same area, which is a place that is like struggling to still retain voting rights, and access to the polls and like what that means. And so, yeah, it's definitely a society-wide conversation. And I'm not suggesting that we drop everything else and focus only on what's happening with our ship, but it's part of the environmental justice conversation and part of the anti-war conversation, and it's part of gender justice conversation. It's all connected.
Yeah.
But I like in your paper too, like just to loop back a little bit about not just rebranding, but it's just like this sort of like, how do we go forward with people, like young people, like kids? And you mentioned this Molly Winter from Recode about like this idea of like advanced potty training. I thought it was interesting as far as, because the kids are the ones that are going to have to deal with all this mess that they're going to have to inherit, unfortunately. But I think the idea of starting them really young and like talking about this stuff that's supposedly taboo, like shitting, is a great way to start, because they can start looking at things in like their culture, where they live, and going down the road. So when they're of age, they can actually make the decisions and really change. Well, the hope is to obviously change and like just really make a society that everybody benefits from, as opposed to like just taking away. I thought it was just fascinating.
I'll try to make sure to get you Pat Lando's number. They're also working on some national level legislation now to make urine fertilizer, like urine reuse, a possibility. It's called the Golden Ribbon Commission. It's very cool. Yeah, it's really cool. So yeah, they're working on the municipal level, trying to get some of those code changes. So yeah, they can do these experiments. And, as we do these experiments, I mean, they're pretty high stakes, because if it goes well, great. If it doesn't, you have like this pile of shit and you piss to deal with. But the point is that we need a whole bunch more people kind of becoming invested in this question. because, on our municipal bills, sewage across the U.S. in places where there's combined sewer systems and therefore places where there's also combined sewer overflows are paying a high cost for sewage. And many politicians don't want to touch it because they're like, oh man, who wants to talk about this crap? I'll be out of office before the pipes burst, But I tell people, if you think politics is a shit show now,
oh yeah,
we're actually dealing with shit.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the infrastructure of this country. We couldn't even really talk about it until bridges are literally falling apart, So the shit really has to hit the fan before we could even talk about shit.
And that's this country too, especially. It's just this wait until the wheels fall off before even get to the root of why the wheels fell off.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of then different political diagnoses on why they fell off and what happened. But I like working on this because everybody poops and there's a possibility for some connection there.
Totally.
And with that, the news. Right?
Yeah. Well, do you want to ask a couple of questions we can get into the other two segments?
Yeah, I mean, I just love to ask all of our guests, what kind of toilet paper do you use, and do you put it on the roll over or under?
Yeah, cool. Well, a couple things on this. Grew up using 2 squares, so just 2 squares. Wow. And we use Who Gives a Crap toilet paper, which is a B Corp that donates a lot, as well as does not cut down old growth trees in order to wipe our butts, but I believe it's bamboo or something like that. So we use Who Gives a Crap. And then also we use Tushy. So we use a Tushy bidet because if we're going to be on a freshwater flush toilet, we're like, okay, can we reduce our water usage by actually squirting ourselves rather than so much more toilet paper that would be required each time? So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Nice.
I agree. We both agree with you there.
We're both in the same. We use bamboo TP, and we both have little snap-on bidets as well. Which is it's a game changer. I was like, how did I not live without this before? This is so funny.
But you totally use less toilet paper. You just need to pat dry, You don't have to go crazy if you wash before you wipe. Sarah, is there anything else before our little game and our news do you want to bring to Hey Poopy that we didn't ask you about or that you didn't touch on?
Cool. Well, I guess I'll just say that the term defecatory justice is one that I made up in kind of conversation with other people as we talked about how is our poop and work related to justice at all? How is it not just an individual concern? And so I think that I want to invite people to ask the question, when you're flushing, where does your poop and your pee go? This is a question that Molly Winter also asks, she often says, is it being gainfully employed or is it wreaking havoc somewhere in a waterway? And if so, if you can find out, if you don't know, find out where it's going, study the rivers and the waterways of the place where you're at so you can know how you are connected each day to that place, not only through what you eat, but also through what you.
I love that. Thank you.
Nice. All right. So we're going to go to our little game we like to call Shitty Choices. And we have 2 for you. Obviously, there's only 2. But the first one being, you're stuck on a Greyhound bus. You got to take a shit. There's no door on the back of the bus. So would you rather take an audibly loud, I mean super loud, just dump in the back of a Greyhound bus, no door, or take a shit in a bar bathroom, no door, no stalls, just like a toilet sitting in the middle of the bathroom there?
Oh, wow. Put me on that Greyhound. I think with a Greyhound, I've got a captive audience to let them know I'm going to take a poop and that we are awesome for taking Greyhound, which is severely underfunded by the company as the national bus, as well as just thank everyone for taking public transportation. And then it'd be like, if y'all want to know more about our research, we have 21 hours to go to what would normally be a 5-hour trip. So we can talk a long time together about how we want to transform our lives through our shit. And then also I would offer, if anyone else needs to take a poop, I will stand there as their door so they can feel a little bit more comfortable.
Aww.
I like you're starting conversations.
Everybody's going to be your best friend at the end of that.
Which is way longer than it needs to take, right? Because Greyhound always be taking extra long.
Oh my God.
To get there.
Never, you're like, okay, so you got to tack on there 5 hours at least.
What about you, Dave?
You go first. I'll go last. If you want.
I agree with Sarah 100%. I'd rather do it on the bus because I also think like all the seats are facing forward and the bathrooms in the back. So like people don't have to stare at me. But in a bar situation, maybe everybody's so drunk they'll just black out the fact that I just did that in front of them. But yeah, I do think bus over. And I like the idea that Sarah said, hey, I'll be your door if you be mine kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a bus only because I've been in a bathroom. It's just a toilet. By the way, it had no lid or it was just the base toilet with ice in it. And no, it was
ice.
It was up on two little steps. Yeah, it's the infamous men's bathroom and at CBGB's. And I walked in, it was like, I mean, first of all, there's no door to the bathroom. There's 3 urinals against one, and then it was just a toilet at the end just sitting there. Like
there's a photo of it out there, Sarah. Just Google CBGB's toilet.
There was like a big meme going around when the whole COVID thing started. It was like, if you go into the bathroom in here, you're never going to get COVID. Which, I mean, looking back, yeah. So anyway, I'm probably, as much as they're both awful, I would probably go with the bus just because, yeah. But there is that seat on the bus that's directly next to the toilet. So if someone is sitting there, you can be like, hey, what's up?
Make that your seat.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the bus as well. Plus, it's kind of funny. You like kind of pretend like that didn't just happen. You're like, that just happened. We all smell it. Let's be adults about this. You know, it happens.
It does.
Shit happens.
Yes, it sure does. And I now Googled the CBGB's toilet. What an epic place, though. All the walls are very colorful.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. So we'll get into a little news and then we'll get you out of here. Here we go. So most of our news stories are kind of that's culled from all over the years, like just all over the place. And we try to be timely, but sometimes, you know, we just gotta like go with what we like. But this is actually pretty timely. There is an artist who did a dog poop Putin portrait to raise money for Ukraine victims. So this British artist just took dog feces and made a whole portrait series of Vladimir Putin, and all the money went towards Ukrainians that were displaced. And it was like, you know, it was so funny because like in the article they were like, does it smell? That was like the question I get all the time. He basically had mixed in a bunch of things, so you don't actually smell the scat. It's just more like, you know, but it's there. It's just like the whole thing. And it's kind of amazing. The guy's a great portrait artist. I thought it was fantastic. And I forgot the gentleman's name. Well, he did raise about 600
Murphy.
Yes, there you go. Oh, there you're on that.
Mm-hmm. Dominic
Murphy, yes. And he raised about $659 American or 500 euro. So I think that was awesome. And the fact that he made it out of dog shit is just, mwah, love that.
That gets attention, but then it reminds me of the Saatchi Gallery thing at Brooklyn Museum like 20 years ago. Yeah, when the guy used elephant dung to do Madonna and how that was like almost banned and had so much like turmoil over it.
He's an awesome artist too. I believe he's British too, but awesome artist. But yeah, I remember that Giuliani lost his like mind when that happened. They were trying to shut down the whole like gallery, like the music. It was
totally
nuts. But yeah, this guy.
There's another guy with a Putin, POO_TIN, which is like trash cans for poos.
Yeah, for dog shit. I love that too.
Great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So
I know. I will never think of Putin again without thinking of a poo tin.
Well, Dominic Murphy, thank you for your work. And I'm sure you can just Google that and find it. Maybe we'll send it to you if you want to, like, you know, pay a little extra to have it shipped over. But you know, if it's got to do with poop, we got to talk about it. So I thought that was pretty awesome. It was dog poop, but still close enough.
It's interesting. I mean, they're just like like. We use shit to make insults to people, but shit is really amazing. So eventually, as Sean says, we're going to move from shit to the shit.
So,
and it's like that artist back in the day who canned his own shit. You know, you ever hear about that?
Oh,
it was like in this.
Who was that?
It was like in the 60s, and the whole point to the piece is he said he put his shit in cans and sold it. But is his shit really there? It's like one of those like existential, like
you gotta open it up.
Open the can to see his shit, but then it depreciates the piece of art.
Piero Manzoni, 1961.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
So you could buy his can of shit and just keep it in there, but is it really in there?
It's kind of genius. And as a designer,
I love art using poop.
Yeah.
I'm totally for it. Maybe that's my next renaissance to my art.
Yeah,
I got to talk to more dominatrix about that.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being on our show. It was a blast. You were amazing. I love what you're doing. And please, please, please let our audience know where they can find you, about your awesome work, and just whatever you want to plug. The forum is yours.
It's so funny because I'm just going to say y'all can email me at my university address, Nahar, SENAHAR @syr.edu, where to get in touch. And there's also I just wrote for allcreation.org, which is looking at kind of some biblical work that has kind of placed, like, interpretations of biblical texts that place humans dominating over everything else versus being in service to or living with. And so that spring equinox piece is just out at allcreation.org. And yeah, just Google defecatory justice, then you'll find me.
Awesome.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's the best. So go do that, people. And thanks for laughing and learning everything but with us.
And happy pooping, everybody, and enjoy your butthole.
For more info, go to heypoopypodcast.com or email us at heypoopypodcast@gmail.com. You can send in show ideas, guest requests. Check us out on Twitter at heypoopy, Instagram at heypoopypodcast, TikTok, heypoopypodcast, and our awesome new Facebook fan page. Go check it out at heypoopypodcast. We're also on Discord at heypoopydumps, or you can contact us at our new awesome hotline, 203-998-5579.
Hey Poopy Podcast is brought to you by Perfect for Entertainment. Produced by Dave and Ellen. Edited by Dave. Executive producer Stormy Leather. Theme song by Jordan Perlson. Hey Poopy!